Ryan sat back in his chair, watching the battle unfold with steady eyes. He had seen war before. He had fought in the void and on planets where the ground burned beneath his boots. He knew what it took to win. And he knew exactly what the aliens were feeling right now. Doubt, fear, desperation. A communication request flashed on his screen. The aliens were trying to talk. Ryan exhaled, amused. Now they wanted diplomacy. Now, after they had fired the first shot, he considered ignoring it. Let them squirm. Let them understand what it meant to face a human warship. But he tapped the screen, opening the channel. Jirok's face appeared, his dark eyes gleaming with barely controlled anger. Ryan leaned forward. "You wanted to conquer Earth," he said. "Tell me, how's that working out for you?" The alien commander hissed in frustration. "This is a mistake. You cannot win against us." Ryan chuckled. "You still don't get it, do you?" He gestured to the wreckage floating in space, the burning remains of what was once an unstoppable fleet. "You already lost the moment you thought we'd be an easy fight." Jirok's mandibles twitched. He looked around at his officers. Some of them refused to meet his gaze. His fleet was breaking. The fear had spread. He had no choice. "This is not over, human." Ryan smirked. Yeah. They all say that." The screen went dark. The alien fleet began to retreat, their remaining ships limping away from the battlefield. Ryan didn't order a pursuit. The message had been delivered. He leaned back, exhaling. Earth was safe. The first battle had ended. But he knew one thing for certain. It wouldn't be the last. The Vengeance moved like a predator through the chaos of battle, its railguns and plasma turrets firing in perfect synchronization. Every shot was calculated, every maneuver executed with deadly precision. The alien fleet, once so confident in its overwhelming numbers, now found itself in disarray. Wreckage floated in the void, the shattered remains of warships that had underestimated humanity. Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his gaze sharp as he watched the tactical display. The aliens were learning the hard way. This was not a battle they could win through brute force. Their weapons, designed to intimidate and overwhelm, were proving ineffective against human defenses. The Vengeance's shields held strong, and its counterattacks were devastating. Yet the enemy was not retreating, at least not yet. Commander Jirok, stubborn and desperate, was still clinging to the belief that his fleet could turn the tide. His ships adjusted their formations, attempting to swarm the human warship from multiple angles. It was a strategy that had worked against other species, crushing resistance through sheer pressure. But humans weren't like the others. Humans fought smarter. The Vengeance shifted position, thrusters firing as it rotated to bring its main cannons to bear. Another volley was unleashed, hypervelocity slugs tearing through an enemy cruiser, splitting it in half. Fire erupted from the wound, oxygen venting into space as the ship broke apart. Ryan barely blinked. This was expected. The enemy, however, was panicking. Alien pilots, once sure of their superiority, now hesitated before engaging. Officers shouted conflicting orders as confusion spread through the fleet. The Vengeance wasn't just winning. It was dominating. And then, for the first time, the enemy did something unexpected. A new battleship emerged from behind their formation, larger than the rest, its hull gleaming with energy. Unlike the others, this one did not fire immediately. It charged. Ryan's eyes narrowed as he watched the massive vessel move, its speed unnatural for its size. "New contact," his weapons officer called out. "It's different, more heavily armed." Ryan nodded, already assessing. They're bringing in their ace. The alien battleship, the Xarvoth, was unlike anything the Vengeance had faced so far. Its hull was reinforced with a strange alloy, absorbing impacts that had torn through lesser ships. More concerning, however, was the weapon it carried. A beam of pure energy erupted from its bow, cutting through the battlefield like a god's fury. The first shot missed, slicing through empty space where the Vengeance had been seconds before. But the second grazed the shields, causing the entire ship to tremble. Shields at 70%. An officer reported. Ryan's jaw tightened. Finally, a real challenge. Adjust vector. Close the distance. The Vengeance surged forward, closing the gap between them and the alien warship. The enemy commander had likely expected them to retreat, to fall back and regroup. That was not how humans fought. They didn't run from a threat. They neutralized it. Another beam, fired, narrowly missing. In response, the Vengeance unleashed a barrage of railgun fire, hammering the alien battleship's defenses. The first few shots deflected harmlessly, but then, crack. A single round found a weak spot, tearing through the hull and sending debris flying. The XR-Voth lurched but kept moving, its engines burning bright. Ryan exhaled, watching the way it moved, the way it fought. It was strong, yes, but it wasn't invincible. And that meant it could be broken. Charge the Titan lance, he ordered, voice calm. The crew obeyed without hesitation. A new hum filled the ship as power surged to the Vengeance's deadliest weapon. The XR-Voth's commander must have realized something was wrong, because suddenly, the alien warship altered course, trying to pull back. Too late. Fire. The Titan lance activated, a brilliant spear of energy erupting from the Vengeance's bow. It struck the enemy battleship dead center, slicing through its hull as if it were nothing. For a moment, there was silence. Then, in an instant, the XR-Voth exploded, its entire structure disintegrating into a burning cloud of wreckage. The remaining alien ships faltered. Their strongest vessel had fallen. Their last hope had been erased. The battle was over. The Vengeance loomed over the battlefield, the only warship still standing. Ryan let out a slow breath as he surveyed the destruction. A few enemy ships were trying to flee, their once mighty fleet reduced to broken fragments. He didn't give the order to pursue. There was no need. The lesson had been taught. Humanity did not bow. Humanity did not break. And when faced with war, humanity won. The battlefield was a graveyard of shattered warships, drifting silently in the void, their once mighty hulls now nothing more than wreckage. Fires flickered in the absence of oxygen, the remains of alien vessels floating aimlessly, their crews either dead or desperately attempting to escape. The Vengeance stood alone, its hull scared but intact, its presence a defiant testament to humanity's strength. Inside, the bridge was eerily quiet. The battle was over, yet the weight of it still hung in the air. Ryan Carter exhaled slowly, his fingers resting on the armrest of his chair as he studied the tactical display. The alien fleet had been decimated. What few ships remained had turned and fled, their commanders too shaken to continue fighting. He could almost feel their fear, the realization sinking into their minds that they had made a terrible mistake. They had come expecting a weak, primitive species. Instead, they had faced something they could not understand, something that refused to be conquered. The silence was broken by the voice of his communications officer. "Captain, we're receiving an open transmission from the enemy." Ryan's eyes flickered to the screen, where a distorted image of Commander Jayrock appeared. The alien leader's face was a mixture of disbelief and fury, his mandibles clicking together in frustration. The confidence he had once displayed was gone, replaced by something Ryan had seen countless times before, the look of a man who knew he had lost. Ryan leaned forward slightly, his expression unreadable. "You have something to say?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Jayrock hesitated for a moment before speaking. This was unexpected. The alien admitted, his voice carrying a weight that had not been there before. "Your species, you were not supposed to be like this." Ryan tilted his head slightly. "Like what?" The alien's dark eyes gleamed. "Dangerous." Ryan chuckled, though there was no humor in it. "You invaded our space. You fired the first shots. And now, because you lost, you finally see the truth. He leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping lightly against the metal armrest. "Let me explain something to you. Humanity has never been the strongest. We've never had the most advanced technology. We've never been the biggest empire in the stars. But what we are is relentless." He gestured toward the wreckage outside the view screen, the floating remains of the fleet that had dared to challenge Earth. "You thought we would surrender. You thought we would bow. But humans don't break. We don't kneel. We fight, no matter the odds, no matter the cost. And when we fight, we don't stop until we win." Jarak was silent, his expression unreadable. For a long moment, neither of them spoke, the weight of the battle lingering between them. Finally, the alien commander let out a slow breath. "This is not the end," he said, though there was less conviction in his voice than before. "We will return." Ryan smirked. "Then bring your best." With that, he cut the transmission, the screen going dark. The bridge remained quiet for a few seconds. Then one of the officers let out a breath. "Do you think they'll really come back, sir?" Ryan considered the question for a moment before giving a small nod. "Eventually. But next time, they won't underestimate us." He turned his gaze toward the wreckage outside, the last remnants of an enemy that had learned the hard way what it meant to face a human warship. The galaxy had just witnessed something it would never forget. The Vengeance had not just won a battle. It had sent a message. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not weak. And if war ever came knocking again, humanity would be ready. The silence that followed the battle was eerie, a stark contrast to the chaos that had raged only moments before. The Vengeance drifted through the wreckage, its massive form untouched by the panic that had consumed the alien fleet. Pieces of shattered warships floated in the void, silent testaments to the brutal efficiency of human warfare. Ryan Carter watched the debris field from the bridge, his expression unreadable. His crew was still at their stations, their hands hovering over controls, waiting for orders that no longer needed to be given. The fight was over. The enemy was broken. And yet, Ryan knew this was not the end. The Vraxians were not a species that accepted defeat easily. They would regroup, reassess, and return with a vengeance of their own. But next time, they would not be so arrogant. Next time, they would come prepared. That thought should have been unsettling, but Ryan felt something else: satisfaction. He had wanted to send a message, and he had done just that. Across the battlefield, the remaining enemy ships were retreating, some limping away with flickering shields and damaged engines, others vanishing into the void at full speed. They had come with the expectation of conquest, of total dominance over a species they considered inferior. Now, they fled like hunted prey. The memory of this battle forever burned into their minds. The communications officer turned toward Ryan. "Sir, we're receiving distress signals from some of the damaged enemy ships. Some are requesting assistance. Others are." He hesitated, then continued, "surrendering." The word hung in the air. Surrender. The very idea of a Vraxian fleet begging for mercy was almost unthinkable. It was proof of just how thoroughly they had been broken. Ryan leaned forward, considering. In any other war, accepting prisoners or aiding enemy survivors would have been the honorable choice. But this was different. The Vraxians had not come here seeking diplomacy. They had not come here with an offer of peace. They had come to conquer, to destroy, to enslave. They had fired the first shots, believing humanity would crumble. Now they expected mercy. Ryan exhaled slowly. "Send a message," he said, his voice steady. "Inform them that humanitarian aid is not available. They came here expecting war. They got what they wanted." The officer nodded and relayed the message. Ryan knew what would happen next. Some of the Vraxians would manage to escape, limping back to whatever empire had sent them. They would tell their leaders about this day, about the human warship that had stood against an entire fleet and won. And when they did, the Vraxians would have to make a choice. They could attempt another invasion, knowing now that humanity would never submit. or they could do what so many species before them had done: fear humanity, respect them, and leave them alone. Either way, the balance of power in the galaxy had just shifted. Ryan pushed himself up from his chair, rolling his shoulders as he turned to his crew. "Good work," he said. "Begin salvage operations. Let's see if there's anything useful left in that wreckage." The crew nodded and set to work. The battle was over, but the war was not. And Ryan Carter knew one thing for certain. If the Vraxians ever returned, if any species ever dared to test humanity's strength again, they would find that the Vengeance was not just a ship. It was a warning, a promise. Humanity did not bow. Humanity did not break. And when war came knocking, humanity would always answer. The Vengeance moved through the debris field like a silent predator surveying the aftermath of its hunt. The battlefield was a graveyard now, a floating testament to the arrogance of an enemy that had thought itself unstoppable. Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the remains of the once mighty Vraxian fleet. Some ships still flickered with weak energy signatures, their crippled systems struggling to maintain power. Others were nothing more than drifting husks, torn apart by human firepower. There were no cheers among the crew, no celebrations. This was not a victory they would revel in. It was a lesson, a warning sent across the stars. Humanity was not to be underestimated. As the salvage teams deployed, small craft moved through the wreckage, scanning for anything valuable. Weapons, shield generators, even scraps of alien technology. Anything that could be studied, reverse engineered, and used to make humanity even stronger. Ryan knew that war was never a single battle. Today, they had won. Tomorrow, someone else would come. The only way to survive was to be ready for whatever came next. His thoughts were interrupted by an alert from the sensors. A faint signal, weak but persistent, pulsed from one of the damaged Vraxian ships. Not a distress call, something else. A coded transmission. His communications officer frowned as they analyzed the signal. "Sir, this isn't a standard distress beacon. It's encrypted." Heavily, Ryan's gaze sharpened. The Vraxians were meticulous record keepers. They logged everything: battle strategies, fleet movements, even tactical weaknesses. If this transmission was important enough to be encrypted, it was something their superiors did not want falling into enemy hands, which meant Ryan wanted it even more. "Crack it," he ordered. "I want to know what they're hiding." The officer nodded and got to work, fingers flying over the console. Minutes passed, tense and silent. Then suddenly, the encryption broke. A data stream scrolled across the screen, and what it revealed made Ryan's blood run cold. Coordinates, a location far beyond human-controlled space, and attached to those coordinates, detailed schematics of something massive. A space station. No, not just a station. A fortress. A hidden military installation buried deep in Vraxian territory, its purpose unknown. The data was incomplete, but one thing was clear. The Vraxians had not come to Earth alone. This invasion was merely a test, the first wave of something much larger. Ryan clenched his jaw. He had suspected as much. The Vraxians were too powerful, too calculated to send a single fleet without a greater plan behind it. And now he had proof. This war wasn't over. It had barely begun. He turned to his crew, his voice calm but firm. "Send this data back to Earth. Highest priority." The officer nodded, transmitting the files immediately. Ryan knew what would happen next. The higher-ups would analyze the intel. They would argue, debate, weigh the risks. But Ryan had already made up his mind. He would not sit back and wait for the enemy to strike again. The Vraxians thought they could test humanity, probe its defenses, dictate the terms of war. They were wrong. If a greater battle was coming, then humanity would not wait for it to reach their doorstep. They would take the fight to the enemy. Ryan exhaled slowly, his decision already made. The Vengeance was built for war. And soon, it would be heading straight into the lion's den. The decision had been made. There was no debate, no hesitation. Ryan Carter stood at the center of the Vengeance's bridge, his mind already moving 10 steps ahead. The encrypted data they had retrieved from the Fraxian wreckage had changed everything. This wasn't just a single battle. It was the first move in a much larger game, one that humanity had not been invited to, but one they would win regardless. The hidden fortress buried deep in Braxian space was proof that the enemy had been planning something far greater than a simple invasion. This fleet had been a probe, a test to measure humanity's defenses, to see how easily Earth would fall. The Vraxians had expected weakness. They had found hell instead. And now Ryan intended to ensure that whatever grand scheme they were planning never came to pass. The bridge crew moved with tense efficiency, their hands gliding over controls as they prepared the Vengeance for its next mission. Orders had already been sent to Earth, the encrypted data relayed to command. But Ryan knew what their response would be. The politicians, the admirals back home, they would argue, delay, weigh the risks of sending a human warship deep into enemy space. They would hesitate, and hesitation got people killed. Ryan wasn't about to wait for a bureaucratic green light. Humanity had been on the defensive for too long. It was time to strike first. Plot a course, he ordered. Deep space jump, straight to those coordinates. His navigator hesitated for only a second. It was a suicide mission, on paper. No reinforcements, no support. Just one warship heading straight into the heart of enemy territory. But hesitation didn't exist on the Vengeance. Course locked in, Captain. Ryan nodded. Engage. The ship rumbled beneath his feet as the jump drive activated, the vast emptiness of space bending and twisting as the Vengeance vanished from the battlefield. The stars blurred into streaks of light. And then, silence. The void consumed them, swallowing the warship as it hurled itself into the unknown. No turning back now. Hours passed in tense anticipation. The crew remained at their stations, triple-checking weapons, shields, and systems. They knew what was waiting for them on the other side of this jump, an enemy stronghold, a fortress built for war. The Vengeance was heading straight into the lion's den, and every single person on board knew that they might never return. But none of them showed fear. They had already proven what a single human warship could do against an entire fleet. And now, they were about to prove that the galaxy's deadliest enemy had no place to hide. The jump alarms flared to life, signaling their imminent arrival. Ryan stood, his gaze locked on the view screen as the ship dropped out of FTL. Space snapped back into focus, and what lay before them made even his seasoned crew suck in a breath. The fortress loomed ahead, a monstrosity of steel and firepower, hidden within the gravitational shadow of a dying star. It was larger than anything they had ever encountered, its surface bristling with weapons, shield arrays, and docking stations large enough to house an entire invasion force. This was no simple outpost. This was the heart of the beast, and they had just walked straight into its jaws. Alarm klaxons blared as enemy ships detected their arrival. Dozens of Vraxian warships, larger and more advanced than the ones they had fought before, moved into formation, their weapons already locking onto the lone human vessel. Ryan exhaled slowly. The odds were impossible. The firepower aimed at them could level a fleet, but that didn't matter, because they weren't here to run. They were here to destroy. He took his seat, his voice steady as he gave the order. All weapons, fire. And just like that, the war had truly begun. The Vengeance roared into battle, its railguns and plasma turrets unleashing devastation the moment the first enemy warship moved to intercept. The vacuum of space erupted in fire and debris as the opening salvo found its mark, tearing through the hull of a Vraxian cruiser and reducing it to a lifeless hulk in seconds. The fortress ahead came alive with activity, its defenses shifting, shields flaring as it prepared to annihilate the lone human warship that had dared to enter its domain. Ryan Carter leaned forward in his chair, his expression unreadable as his crew executed orders with ruthless efficiency. The odds were beyond impossible, Dozens of enemy warships, planetary-grade defense turrets, and a fortress built to withstand entire armadas. And yet, fear had no place here. The Vengeance danced through the battlefield, thrusters firing in perfect synchronization, dodging kill shots by fractions of a second while retaliating with pinpoint precision. A barrage of torpedoes streaked toward the warship, but the ship's AI, cold and unyielding, calculated the perfect evasive pattern. Explosions bloomed behind them, harmless. "Focus fire on the command relays," Ryan ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. "If we blind them, we control the field." His weapons officer nodded, fingers flying over the console. The Vengeance's Titan Lance, the ship's most devastating weapon, charged with a deep, ominous hum. Ryan's eyes flickered to the tactical display. 3 command ships positioned at key points, coordinating the fortress's defenses. Take them out, and the entire enemy network would collapse. The beam fired, a blinding spear of energy lancing through the void. The first command ship never stood a chance. Its shields buckled, its hull vaporized in an instant. The second ship tried to pull back, realizing too late what was happening. The Vengeance's railguns struck like a hammer, puncturing its engines, sending it spiraling into the darkness. The enemy's coordination wavered. For the first time, the fortress hesitated. That was all Ryan needed. Now, the Vengeance surged forward, pushing straight into the chaos, a lone predator ripping through the heart of a wounded beast. Vraxian warships scrambled to reorganize, their formation breaking apart as panic set in. The fortress's main cannon, an orbital lance capable of shattering moons, began to charge, its deadly glow illuminating the battlefield. A single shot would end them. Ryan knew it. His crew knew it. And yet, he did not stop. Divert all power to forward shields. Prepare for point-blank engagement. The crew obeyed without question. The Vengeance rammed through a smaller enemy ship, its reinforced hull barely registering the impact as alien metal crumpled like paper. They were inside the fortress's defensive perimeter now, too close for the main cannon to fire without hitting its own fleet. The enemy had just lost their greatest weapon. Ryan smirked. Deploy the warheads. The ship's belly opened, releasing a payload of experimental high-yield missiles, each one built to break planetary fortifications. The Vraxians had never seen human weapons like these before. They had prepared for a siege, for a prolonged battle of attrition. They had not prepared for humanity's sheer, reckless brutality. The warheads struck the fortress in a cascade of fire, tearing through its shield generators, rupturing key structures, sending shockwaves through the entire installation. Secondary explosions erupted as fuel depots ignited, sending debris and bodies into the void. The fortress was dying. The remaining Vraxian warships, leaderless and desperate, fled. Ryan watched the carnage unfold, his grip tightening on the armrest of his chair. The mission was complete. The fortress, the heart of the enemy's war machine, was finished. But something inside him told him this was not the end. This battle had proven that humanity was not only capable of fighting back, but of striking first. And now, the entire galaxy would know. The comm officer turned, voice steady despite the chaos still unfolding. "Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command." Ryan exhaled slowly. He already knew what they would say. He had defied orders, led an unsanctioned attack into enemy space, and thrown humanity into a war that could not be undone. He also knew they had no choice but to stand by him now. The war had already begun, and the Vengeance had fired the first shot. Ryan leaned back, the burning remains of the Vraxian fortress reflected in his eyes. "Put them through," he said. Whatever came next, humanity would be ready. Because now, the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity did not kneel. Humanity did not break. And when war came, humanity always won. The aftermath of the battle lingered like a storm that had passed, leaving behind only devastation and silence. The Vengeance hovered among the ruins of the Vraxian fortress, its hull scorched but unbroken, its crew alive but forever changed. Ryan Carter sat in his command chair, his gaze locked on the smoldering wreckage drifting through the void. Fires flickered in the oxygen-deprived husks of alien warships, their twisted metal corpses a testament to what had happened here. This was more than just a battle. It was a statement. Humanity had done the impossible, not just survived, but won. A lone warship had plunged into the heart of enemy territory and left nothing but destruction in its wake. And now, the entire galaxy would be watching. His comm officer cleared his throat. "Sir, Earth Command is still waiting." Ryan exhaled. He had ignored their orders, led an unsanctioned mission, and annihilated an enemy stronghold without waiting for permission. He knew what was coming. The politicians would call him reckless. The admirals would question his defiance. But none of that mattered. They couldn't argue with results. He nodded. "Patch them through." The view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern face of Admiral Whittaker. Behind him, other high-ranking officials from Earth's military and government sat in silence, their faces unreadable. For a long moment, no one spoke. The wreckage of the Vraxian fortress still burned behind Ryan, the sheer scale of the destruction undeniable. Finally, Whittaker leaned forward. His voice was measured, controlled. "Do you have any idea what you've just done, Captain Carter?" Ryan met his gaze without flinching. "I won a war before it could start." A tense silence followed. The politicians exchanged glances, some looking uneasy, others furious. But Whittaker, he understood. The old soldier had seen too many battles, lost too many good men to hesitation and bureaucracy. He had known this war was inevitable, even if the politicians refused to see it. Ryan could tell Whittaker wasn't angry. He was calculating. Measuring the weight of this moment, realizing what it meant. "The Vraxians won't take this lightly," Whittaker finally said. "You just crippled their operations in this sector. They'll retaliate." Ryan nodded. "Let them." Another silence. Then one of the politicians, a woman in a sharp military uniform, spoke up, her voice edged with frustration. "You acted without authorization. You could have lost." Ryan cut her off. "Like hell I would." He gestured at the battlefield behind him. "We've spent too long waiting for someone else to strike first. The Vraxians tested us, and we broke them. If I had waited, if I had followed protocol, they would have sent another fleet. A bigger one. And next time, it wouldn't be a warship they came for. It would be Earth." The weight of his words settled over the room. The politicians didn't like it, but they knew he was right. The galaxy was not a safe place. Power was the only language that mattered, and today, humanity had spoken loud and clear. Whittaker studied Ryan for a long moment before nodding slightly. "I can't promise they won't try to court-martial you." Ryan smirked. "They can try." The Admiral almost smiled. Almost. Then his expression hardened. "You forced humanity's hand, Carter. We can't go back from this." "We were never going back," Ryan said. "This war was coming, whether we wanted it or not. Now, at least, we're ready." Another long silence. Then Whittaker gave a sharp nod. "Return to Earth. I suspect you'll have a complicated welcome waiting for you." The screen went dark. The connection severed. Ryan exhaled, rolling his shoulders as he turned back to his crew. They were still watching him, waiting, knowing that they had just changed the course of human history. "Set a course for home," he ordered. The Vengeance turned away from the battlefield, leaving the burning wreckage of the Vraxian fortress behind. Ryan knew this wasn't the end. The enemy would return, stronger, angrier. But now, they knew the truth. Humanity did not fear war. Humanity did not submit. And if the Vraxians wanted a fight, they had just found their greatest enemy.